What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So tomorrow we have some big time releases to look forward to. That includes Ghostwire Tokyo, as well as Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which had the reviews go up online yesterday, along with the game itself, which leaked early. Go figure. We're going to go over all that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a new PlayStation 5 update that's gone live with some nice quality of life features, as well as one other feature that people have been asking to hear a bit more about for a while now. And we also had another game delay announced, but this one was kind of expected. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with House of the Dead Remake. It's out in about 2 weeks now, and I'm very interested to see how Forever Entertainment pulls off this title exactly, because they will be using gyro aiming for what you would expect to be more as like a pointer shooter style game with what we had with the Wii, for example. Well, it looks like Nintendo Life wanted further clarification on this, so yes, it will indeed have gyro aiming. However, part of those questions gave us some new information, which we can see here, where they asked about a single player wielding two Joy-Con guns simultaneously. This is going to be called Cowboy Mode, and I mean, if you're playing by yourself, I don't know why you wouldn't just use this. You have an extra gun then, but that's going to be part of a planned update post-release. And then they also ask about gyro controls for the Pro Controller, which will also be possible. And again, that'll be interesting because you're going to be just moving the Pro Controller around, and you also have the sticks, so we'll see how this all turns out. But they did ask about a gun peripheral, and it looks like Forever Entertainment's kind of hinting at that. So I wouldn't be shocked if they are working on at least a House of the Dead remake themed piece of plastic that you put your Joy-Con controller in. But again, we'll find out. The game does release in a couple of weeks, and we even have like the Limited Dead edition that's up on Amazon now, but certainly interested to see how this title pans out. Also, we have a bit of an update when it comes to AMD's FSR upscaling. That's their Super Resolution 2.0. We talked about how this was introduced after we really found out that some titles on the Switch are using Super Resolution 1.0, Life is Strange, and also Switch Sports. Well, it does look like, according to what we've seen now at GDC, that developers with the Xbox will have access to 2.0 sometime in the future. We can see this posted up by The Verge, saying while AMD says it can't actually say when Xbox game developers might take advantage of FSR 2.0, it says it will also be fully supported on Xbox and will be available in the Xbox GDK for registered developers to use in their games. And I think this is good to see these advanced upscaling techniques just become available for developers. Again, more options to make these games look better. And I think that's the biggest thing we're going to see as we go through this generation. The potential for maybe us to forego that pro model system and more of a focus on some of these upscaling techniques getting better and better and better to where 4K 60 is much more available, I'll say, towards the end of this generation, even on the systems we have now, without having to rely on an Xbox Series X Pro or Series XX or PlayStation 5 Pro. I like the idea of these upscaling techniques getting better, and the fact that FSR 2.0 will be available to developers with their Devkits and all that with the Xbox sometime soon is good to hear. Oh, and also we have an update around the Elden Ring situation where in multiplayer, some people can come in and actually just like mess up your save by dropping you in this like infinite death loop, basically. Well, it looks like Bandai Namco has figured this out in the latest update, which you can see here. This was 1.03.2, so you're going to want to update to this as soon as possible, but we can see the major items at the bottom. Fixed a bug in multiplayer that allowed players to teleport others to incorrect map coordinates. So there we have it. It appears that they have fixed it, which is great because the game itself is very good, and it would be a shame if you play 60, 70 hours in and then someone just randomly invades your game, crashes it, and then basically ruins your entire save data because you're stuck in this infinite loop. So make sure you get updated to this as soon as possible. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Again, it's out tomorrow, and I feel like we've seen a lot about this game, and we've even played it because there's a full demo on the eShop now. Well, reviews dropped yesterday, and we can see this here over on Metacritic, currently sitting at an 85. I think that's really good for a Kirby game, especially one that, I mean, takes a serious chance going into the 3D space, but on 65 critic reviews, we can see the split: 62 positive, 3 mixed, 0 negative. In fact, I did see a couple of perfect scores, but for the most part, it's like 85s to 90s. And we did have one review all the way at the bottom that I noticed on Metacritic sitting at a 65 by Us Gamers. So for the most part, people seem pretty happy with Kirby's latest outing. And a lot of it, from what I've seen, has to do with the art style, the visuals that we're getting out of it, and the overall platforming in this new 3D Kirby game is extremely creative and interesting. Now, a couple of the disappointing factors people pointed at really was, it's pretty easy. But, I mean, I don't think every game has to be Elden Ring difficult or even that challenging. I mean, if the game is fun and keeps you engaged through some of the interesting elements when it comes to platforming, puzzles, and yes, the art direction, it's still a very good game. But the other element that people were a bit let down is the 30 FPS. And yes, I get that too, but it is straying closer to 1080p most times when docked. So to me, it looks like they went more in line with, okay, we want the game to look really good. And I mean, the game itself, I think with the color palette and everything, it pops off the screen. If you've played the demo, you already know that, but the different worlds that were shown in a lot of these reviews look really cool to explore. And it sounds like there's just a lot to do in this game that's not even necessarily tied to like the main story progression part, where there's a lot of side challenges and different things you can kind of go off the beaten trail to find. Now, Digital Foundry did their typical analysis of the game, found that the frame rate was generally locked, and the lowest the resolution would go when in docked mode at rare times was like 810p, and when in handheld mode sat close to that 720p resolution, more so than not. So for the most part, the game's gonna look good. It's gonna feel a little more sluggish than something you'd see with Mario Odyssey, where it's 60 FPS. However, they did mention that the overall latency was a bit lower, and they wanted to do that, specifically Nintendo and HAL, so that the game itself felt more responsive despite being at 30 FPS as a platformer. And for me, I'm to the point now where I'm just ready to get the game and play it. I've seen enough, and that's why I at least wanted to bring it to your attention that the game has leaked out online. It's a bit closer to release than we're used to with some of these Nintendo titles, where sometimes it'll be a week early. It'll just be online and everyone's playing it and it's being streamed and you see screenshots and video clips on Twitter. This is like a day or two before. Obviously now we're Thursday, and yesterday it really started to spread online, where it looked like one had just broken street date as there was a picture online, and after that happens, there it is, it starts showing up on a bunch of different websites. People download them, and I did see that people were even streaming the game online, which we know Nintendo is not very happy about that, but I guess the good thing about Kirby is there's not necessarily a story to spoil, not one that's like super meaningful, but the thing that I don't want to be spoiled about is any of like the mouthful mode or interesting puzzles or parts of the world that I'd like to discover for myself. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Be careful out there today, maybe even tomorrow if you're not getting it till later on in the day, because people are indeed sharing screenshots, clips, and I'm sure the final boss will probably be online somewhere by the time you're seeing this video. Next up, let's talk about a big PlayStation update that is now live. The PS5 got an update, but also the PlayStation 4. Now, the PlayStation 4's update, not as meaningful as the PS5, as it looks like Sony mostly did work when it comes to the party system on the PS4, probably to line up with the PS5 since you can have like cross like party chat and all of that there. But the PS5 got quite a bit when it comes to quality of life improvements, as well as talk around future implementation with a feature that people have been asking for a while. First though, let's head over here to the PlayStation support page, where they go over update 22.01-05.00.00. Now in game base, they updated several things, which includes the voice chats now just being called parties. They also divided up the Game Pass into 3 tabs: friends, parties, messages. You can start up a party and just immediately have it as an open or closed party. That way it'll be easier to manage a bit. So maybe you just want friends to jump into the closed party as opposed to just having a party and then people just start piling in with your open party. 6 additional languages have been added to the screen reader function. They also did some work with the visual design of the trophy cards. I noticed the trophies themselves now take up like the large, like gray part of that card. So I think it looks a lot better that way. You can see basically the rarity of the trophy that you're looking at much easier at a glance. And they are implementing a voice command preview. So this is kind of like speech commands for your PlayStation, almost like an assistant where you could say, hey, PlayStation, show me Horizon Forbidden West or show me Ghostwire Tokyo, and it can take you to the store page, or I guess even launch it. And I did notice that you can even like kind of pin some of the apps that you have on your home screen so that they don't just get kicked off as you put different games in your PlayStation or buy or download stuff. But the big feature people were really happy to see mentioned was VRR, or variable refresh rate. We can see this posted up over on the PlayStation blog, saying on the horizon, variable refresh rate support for PS5. We're pleased to share that variable refresh rate is planned to release on PS5 in the coming months. On HDMI 2.1 compatible TVs and monitors, VRR dynamically syncs the refresh rate of the display to the PS5 console's graphical output. Now, this will work to eliminate things like visual artifacts, frame pacing issues, which generally is what people will feel when the frame rate starts to go all over the place and it doesn't feel as responsive and starts to stutter and it looks kind of strange. That's typically what VRR will work to at least mitigate somewhat. It's not perfect, and there will still need to be implementation from these different developers through patches, but the thing that Sony is mentioning here is that VRR can just be turned on. Like, you can just try it. If there's a game that's very unstable, maybe it sits in like, maybe it's like a 60 frames per second game, but it constantly dips down into like the 40s, you will notice that. And with, of course, anything that's like 30 FPS, it might dip down a bit. You'll notice that too. VRR can at least be turned on and you can attempt to smooth it out a bit. Now, it can cause some issues, and they do mention that here, which in that case, you can turn it off and hope that maybe the developers will look to release a patch for it. But it's good news to hear them at least talk about it, because the Xbox has had this for a bit, and it has at least shown noticeable improvement around games that have unstable frame rates. Now, you will still need a TV or a monitor that has this ability, and if you don't, then you're probably like, okay, I don't care about it now. But I think as we move along in the coming years, VR will become much more apparent and I would say mainstream, or just more available when it comes to these different sets that are releasing, especially with computer monitors. And that's something I use, as a computer monitor that does have VRR. So it is good to hear that I will at some point in the coming months have that on the PlayStation 5. But overall, pretty good update, about 1 gigabyte in size, so make sure you get your system up to date as soon as possible. Next up, let's talk about an ongoing situation with Nintendo, the Wii, and the DSi. Now, about a week ago, people noticed that the servers were not up anymore to re-download your virtual console games, as an example, on the Wii, or any of the things you've had on the DSi that you purchased previously and maybe you want to go re-download. Well, Nintendo actually responded. This with Kotaku, we can see here, where they say the Wii Shop channel and Nintendo DSi Shop are currently undergoing maintenance. We will provide an update at a later date. I mean, it took a lot just to get Nintendo to give them 2 lines, which tells me Nintendo's like, we'll get to it when we get to it. I mean, how much do you think Nintendo cares with their list of priorities, all the stuff they have to do? Where do you think the Wii and the DSi places? It's probably all the way at the bottom right now. Sure, there could be maintenance because they are obviously doing a lot of work with their Switch and their network infrastructure and backend now, because we've heard that they're moving away from their kind of their legacy setup that people said had like Windows 98 referenced in the code, which, well, it's Nintendo. I kind of believe that. But I do wonder if this is ever going to come back, or Nintendo looked at this and said, wow, it took people 4 or 5 days to realize they couldn't re-download their games on the Wii. How many people are actually using it? Like, they know how many people are accessing the server, and I have a feeling it's not that many. And yeah, maybe they just slowly phase this out and they're like, maybe people will just forget. You know, let me know if you're someone who noticed this or has even used their Wii or their DSi anytime recently to where this would have affected you, because I'm looking around and it just doesn't seem like that many people care about the idea of this being phased out for re-downloads. It's more, to me, the future when it comes to digital games or game purchases and ownership, because this is probably going to happen at some point for the Wii U and the 3DS. And then I wonder if people will notice. In our last bit of news, let's talk about a game delay that was announced that was pretty much expected at this point, but it is official. We can see this posted up. This from Sefton Hill, saying we've made the difficult decision to delay Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League to spring 2023. I know a delay is frustrating, but that time is going into making the best game we can. I look forward to bringing the chaos to Metropolis together. Thanks for your patience. So, there was a report, a month or so ago, earlier this year, where Bloomberg had mentioned it was quietly delayed internally. I think we even talked about it here. And now you look around, where would they place this game? We have Batman or Gotham Knights coming up. That's going to be in October. We feel like Hogwarts Legacy is probably November, although it could be like first week of December. I feel like they're going to try to place it right there in November. Where would you put Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is going to be a big next generation release from Rocksteady? I mean, it has to go into 2023 at this point. And it does also make me wonder what exactly this game is going to be. We're still trying to figure that out because we've seen cinematics. They've tried to describe it to us, but is this game that big? It's been a while since Rocksteady released a title, that being with Arkham Knight. So, I mean, this must be an extremely ambitious project that I'm just not really wrapping my head around yet. I mean, the concept is interesting. While I don't really care as much about the characters or the Suicide Squad, I mean, I like the idea of trying to take it from a different perspective, and rather than be the Justice League, you're trying to hunt the Justice League down. But I'm more curious about the multiplayer side of thing, the fact that this is supposed to be a live service project, how that's going to work. So who knows? Here's hoping all of this extra time they're taking makes it a really, really good game, but I guess we'll find out as we get closer to spring 2023. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, the reviews for Kirby and the Forgotten Land are now live. Are you picking it up this weekend? 27% said yes, getting it ASAP. 44% said I'll get it later, maybe when it goes on sale. And then 29% said no, I'm not interested. No, that's not too bad. 71% of people are at least interested enough to even pick it up down the line when it goes on sale, which is a Nintendo title. It probably wouldn't go on sale for, I mean, let's be real, a couple of years at this point. Hey, who knows? Maybe one of these retailers try to make a splash on Black Friday and, oh, Kirby's $40 now or something. But the more I've seen about this game, the more it has like that, kind of that Nintendo charm to it, that creative Nintendo flair. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited, because I've wanted Kirby to go into 3D for a long time, just kind of shake things up. They finally do it. It looks high quality. So yeah, I'm on board this weekend. I'll be playing a lot of Kirby. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Jason saying, I find it funny Nintendo has issues like themes and folders. They say they don't want to slow the Switch down, but correct me if I'm wrong. Sony now both of those with the Vita with minimal slowdown on weaker hardware. Funny that I just think a lot of people are starting to realize, if they haven't already yet, that the Vita was just ahead of its time. It had a lot going for it when it came to features. I mean, we were doing voice chat, had an OLED display, and yes, it had ways to organize your icons much better than what Nintendo's even come up with groups, which is, well, it's like a half step almost to folders when it comes to organizing your main screen. And I'm like I said, I'm seeing people, Sean, RGT, thinks the Vita is just this incredible handheld now. And I'm like, where were you 8 years ago? We could have used you. And I do wonder if the PS4 didn't explode out of the gate like it did, if Sony would have felt the need to maybe support the Vita a bit more, because they were all in on that PlayStation 4, and unfortunately it's the detriment of the Vita. But if that wasn't the case and the Vita got more support from Sony, if it maybe would have done better, and eventually we would have like a Vita 2 that we'd be talking about right now. Who knows what kind of alternate timeline that would have been, but it would have been interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the PlayStation 5 update talking about VRR? Are you excited? Would you take advantage of that? And then Kirby and the Forgotten Land out tomorrow. Are you picking it up? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.